But it's just interesting that sometimes when we feel that need to just do nothing, we either feel guilty about it
Yeah.
because feel that we're doing nothing,
Yeah.
even though we are recharging our battery and we're allowing ourselves to get back to that 100% charge so we can give 100% of ourselves. Again, we feel that we don't have permission,
That's right.
or that we're failing within our obligations, rather than looking at it objectively and going, you know what, I'm just going to go and have a nice soak in a tub for an hour. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to just do a few basic things to just make sure the house survives until the next day.
Hello, Quanta folks, and welcome to another episode of Bark the Shoulds. I am Jodi from QuantiMama.
And I'm McGill from QuantiPapa.
Welcome, everyone. We are talking about having a foot in both camps today. And how does that relate to farking the shoulds? Well, let's rewind. What does it mean to have a foot in both camps? And I think what I'm really interested in talking about is what it's like for the modern man who has an understanding or a knowing or an inner knowing about all the juicy stuff that we talk about, and then operates in a world that is almost impervious to that awareness, because that inner knowing sits inside all of us. So I want to talk about that, and I'm really interested from the perspective of what it's like for say women who, you know, might work part-time or might be full-time mums, and, you know, be these mumpreneurs who are these heart-leds that are doing all the groovy stuff and really looking to, I guess, create a ripple effect of a higher vibration in our community. You know, we invest in our kids a bit more, not necessarily through, you know, more activities or more material goods, but this energetic connection, you know, this real intentional connection. And then we get to luxuriate in that like high vibe, woo-woo, groovy space all the time. But the men that enable us to do that from a point of view of earning income and going and doing all the stuff that needs to be done, I'm really interested in what that's like and how you make that work and how you find your voice in those more dense situations. And what do you make of that, McGill?
It actually probably goes a bit deeper than that as well. Yes, because it comes right back down to the core of a relationship, because development is going to be at different rates or different pathways and that sort of stuff. So there's quite a bit in there, and there's not necessarily the opportunity sometimes for another partner, possibly one that's working full time. And if they're in that dense world, there's not necessarily always the opportunity for them to be able to shed that and just immediately move into growth. And I guess we've probably seen it and know people that have had that struggle where, you know, one is on a trajectory doing some ladder learning, they're just flying straight up there, and they're like, well, why aren't you coming with me?
And that can like either gently shake or really disrupt a relationship where there's this fear that you buy into of, I'm going to leave you behind. You know, not this thing where, and maybe for some relationships that's true, because there's probably a natural evolution that happens for women. I'm thinking about their 40s, if they've started the now traditional time frame of having their babies in their 30s, say. And they get to that point where their kids have got a level of independence where you feel like they probably won't burn the house down. They can feed themselves if times get really tough. And so there's a spaciousness that gets created for women where they go, okay, it's my turn. It's my time. I've been of service. I've done all the things I'm meant to do. But that is absolutely underpinned by the service that is these men in these relationships who provide that.
And that almost has steps into the dangerous ground of it potentially being taken for granted.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially in that sort of middle class category, you've got everything you need, you've got, you know, a good bit of wealth around you and that sort of stuff. It's very easy to lose sight of that fact that team back at the very start is what's led to this position. Um, and, I think it's one of those things where sometimes guys get a bit of a bad rap because they can't just necessarily jump from point A to point Z quite as quickly. And, when you are going to work and you're holding your space for yourself,
Mm.
um, as much as everyone goes, you need to hold space for others, you need to hold space for yourself first.
Yeah,
Because if you're not 100% committed to yourself, then you can never give it 100% to anyone else.
I love that.
So, you're sort of looking at all of a sudden this, I guess this, you could call it an awakening, an awareness that sort of comes along for a lot of people when they have that bit of luxuriousness. And as you highlighted, the children aren't being the house down, which is always a good thing.
It's a
They
very
might
good
even
thing.
produce a meal or two occasionally.
Successful parenting tick.
And
Yep.
then there's a bit of a gap in there for some self growth and some self awareness. And women have been very good at getting together into women's circles and women's groups and getting out there and empowering one another. And
Mm,
they've wanted to buck the
mm,
trend and push
mm,
back against what I guess is loosely termed the patriarchy, and that's
mm,
brilliant because
mm,
that needs to be done.
mm,
But at the same time,
mm,
the other half of that relationship has got a foot in that camp because that camp of that patriarchy, that old world, that source of income
mm.
is coming from that side of it. And so there's a real potential for a disconnect there.
Yeah. And interested to know whether in these modern times, if there is such a thing as a patriarchy. I know that there are different cultures that's like, well, there'll be a more predominant kind of force field, say. So in these kind of ideas where what the man says go, he's the head of the family. But I feel like for many cultures, and certainly in our privileged Western space, what the man says might go in terms of his ego, but the old, you know, my my big fat Greek wedding joke is that the woman is the neck and she turns the head of the man in the direction she chooses, right? And so this idea that in fact it's not really a patriarchy, it might just be a traditional way that we've approached things. But I have a sneaking sense that men underneath the surface are actually like don't know if they're Arthur or Martha in the sense that they aren't quite sure anymore. Like, you know, am I the head of the family? Am I not the head of the family? Where is my voice in this? How does the counterbalance go? Does it balance out with what I'm being reflected in society? What is healthy masculinity? What is toxic masculinity? Like it's an effing misstep, like just waiting to happen, isn't it? And what's that like? Does it
Well,
suck?
it does to some degree. I mean, lucky enough that we've always had beautiful open communication in our
Yeah.
relationship. And anyone that knows us, I've always said to them that when I was looking for a wife, and I was looking for my equal. And that didn't necessarily mean equal in absolutely everything I do, but my equal, I guess, in more of a probably back then in a more rudimentary sense, it was about someone who could hold their own, someone who was capable of having good conversation, someone that had their own interests, their own life, and they just wanted to share all of that with me. And I wanted to bring everything I had and have this beautiful, equal, harmonious relationship that then went forward.
Yeah, so synergy.
Yeah,
Mm.
and so I guess that's probably morphed over the time of
Mm.
almost, yeah, wow, quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And
We've got grey hair to prove it.
yes, we have. I've got probably a lot more than you.
You do. You're generous like that.
Just taking the lead, baby. Try to keep up.
I'll do my
Um,
best.
and all of a sudden, you sort of look at it and you go, in our family,
Mm.
we've developed what I think is a really good balance.
Mm.
If you have an opinion, or if I have an opinion, or if we have a difference of opinion, we express it to one another in a kind and loving way.
Mm.
And if we need space, we take space, and then we come back and we have open discussion. But we spend a lot of time getting to that. And it's the same thing where I think about a lot of these guys that can't necessarily step outside that world at all because
Yeah.
they feel so tied to it because it's their sense of identity, it's their sense of ego,
Mm.
it's their sense of, I've got to do this for my family.
Yeah.
That is driving them. And so they just don't have that ability to step into that growth. And I think sometimes blokes get a rough trot because of that.
Yeah, I feel like they're sometimes maligned. I wonder because obviously everything is energy and every thought has the ability to affect the environment around it, like every single thought. So, with that in mind, like what is it? How do we progress as a society to keep leveling up the the you know higher frequency, which is where that higher consciousness is, if there's a bunch of us women who are naturally tired and are starting to complain about our spouses, but in a really sort of single-minded and lacking in generous sort of notion.
Hmm.
There's not this kind of affording of what it's like for you men. And I really feel, of course, this is where the caveat kicks in. Okay, some people are single parents, blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's just agree that there are lots of people in different circumstances. I'm not going to talk to all of those. I'm talking about what is considered a traditional relationship. And that can be same sex, but generally there will be a person that expresses a divine masculine and a person that expresses a divine feminine, right?
Hmm.
And so even the same sex relationships, we know there's one partner that goes out and works full time, and there's the other partner that tends to work part time and be the primary care of the kids, right?
Hmm.
So they're roles within the household. So I'm talking to those. So you guys as adults can sub in the words that you need to make this work, but just follow my drift.
And we will only talk from our experience.
Well, that's exactly right. But I mean, generalizations exist for a reason because there tends to be similarities. And so you can draw that as a comparison. But one thing I certainly am aware of is that for the primary worker, they they have to walk this tightrope where, they are in the provider role, they are in the protector role. It's reinforced by society. And, part of that provision is to ensure you're earning an income. So if you're working for yourself, like, holy smokes, there's a whole level of extra stress that comes into your world. And I just like, how do we help our men find that higher vibration within that? It can't just be a matter of acknowledging it and saying thank you,
Well, that is actually part of a good start, though,
is it?
because it's acknowledging that someone, and this is great rule in life, it's
Mm,
acknowledging that someone's in a different or a more challenging space, or they might be enjoying it,
mm,
than you are.
mm,
Um, and, we've had the luxury over time where I've gone part-time and allowed you to work full-time. And I
mm.
use the word allowed there intentionally because I know it'll trigger some
Oh my
people.
God, it triggered me.
No, we came to a discussion. You had an opportunity, and it
Yeah.
was a great opportunity for your growth, for your ability, for that sort of stuff. And so I took a back seat.
Mm.
Um, we've done that once voluntarily, and we've
Yep.
done once that
Forcibly.
mandatorily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Um, so I guess I had a far greater insight into
Mm,
the other side of
mm,
that, of having that
mm,
time at home. And I miss, because I'm back working full time, I miss the time at home. I miss
mm,
that bit of luxuriousness of having, of not feeling fatigued all the time, not feeling tired all the time, and being able to be, really interactive
mm,
with the people around me.
mm,
And it's interesting to see how when those roles changed, how our roles changed within the family unit as well.
mm, mm,
Because there was definitely
mm,
a change,
mm,
and but having an appreciation of what that change is and why it's happening and where it's come from
mm,
is part of being able to go, okay,
mm,
this is where you're at.
mm.
I
So I've got a question for you. I mean, I think you're qualified to answer it. Do you think it's not really a question of being harder, but do you think it is more, the potential is more draining being a full-time parent than it is working full-time? I'm curious about this because you've done this a couple of times. As we said, one by choice. I still reckon it was kind of reluctant. You sort of went, yeah, it's okay, it's your turn, but you were sort of, trying to convince yourself. The second time, as we said, it was mandated, and so you were forced into it in that sense, and that had that whole thing as well. So they're not the same
Mhm,
situation.
mhm.
And you didn't just vaginally birth and then breastfeed children. So it wasn't like your body was tied to it from a requirement there. But how, in terms of your experience, because I find that, me included, I tend to think full-time work is easier than full-time parenting because I find the monotony jarring. I find I mean, because it's slightly monotonous. But the other thing is caring for children when you do it one day and then you actually do it again the next day as well. Like it doesn't change in that sense of there's a ineffectualness that it feels like I just did that load of washing and now I've got another load of washing, right? Very 3D. And then there's this thing where I'm kind of, feel responsible for their spiritual growth and their, frequency harmony and, their mental wellness and what they're here to do and shaping these, helping shape these young minds. So there's a lot of, we put a lot of weight into it as well, us, more aware parents. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think we talk ourselves into the fact that it's a tougher job than it is?
Um, Possibly. I think some people are just wired that way where they just absolutely love it. And
Obviously, we're talking about the ones who don't love it, right? The
and
type A
I was
personalities is
going to
what we
say,
describe.
in our household, we
Yeah.
have two type A personalities. We've got
Yeah.
two people that are both used to both being out there and being at the forefront of whatever is going on.
Yeah, being the guy.
Um, yeah,
The
well,
guy. Talk to that guy. He's got
yeah,
the
a
answers.
gal.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, is
Yeah,
we were that guy. We were that person.
but I think, yeah, my preference,
Mm,
as I've shown, is to work in that full time capacity.
mm.
And I don't know whether that's tied to the rest of it, identity and ego and all those sorts of things as well. Um,
You do sate it, obviously, when you address that, but maybe that's your natural proclivity is to
Possibly.
be the provider and protector.
Yeah, and maybe that's the role that I where I see the
Mm,
most in alignment with who I am.
mm,
It's an interesting thing though, because as you're sort of saying, when you're looking at the both camps and you're just going over then some of the different things and looking at it from that stay-at-home parent side of things, where
mm,
you are doing everything day in, day out, and it's monotonous and it's boring, and you know there's more to life. There's more value of who you are.
mm,
Then you start getting that little bit of space, and then
mm,
you decide it could be a part-time job you throw in there, it could be spiritual growth and development that you throw in there, it could be um, homesteading, it could be any of those sorts of things that
mm,
suddenly appeal to you, and
mm,
you start a different layer of growth, and that growth, as the time starts to luxuriate, as you move out of those really formative years for children,
mm,
all of a sudden you've got this ability to just range.
mm.
Um, and sometimes that's an amazing thing because any growth is a good thing. But then the disparity comes, and I wonder if this is why we have so much divorce around that 40s into the
Mm,
sort of 50s sort of
mm,
age group as kids are hitting that early early teen sort of
mm,
area where they're
mm,
suddenly dependent
mm,
is there's the growth's happened, but it hasn't
mm,
been shared.
mm.
And having your foot in both camps, I guess, given my now experience of being back full time again, I'm a far more aware being than what I was. So I'm constantly looking and going, okay, what else can I do? But there's still times where I'll come home and I just don't have anything left. I
Yeah.
might have, done my role and sat there and held space not only for myself, but for a number of other people that are going through different things or been challenged through a period of time,
Mm,
and then come home and there's nothing left there for growth,
mm,
or it feels there's nothing left. There's always room,
mm.
but
Well, that is something we tell ourselves.
yeah,
I got no time. I got no energy. I'm out of this. I'm out of that. And I'm like, man, if a, bus landed on your kid, you'd be able to lift it off there. No props. Like that, it's this idea that energy is limited. It's not, it's limitless. So that is something that we tell ourselves, no doubt. But it also feeds into, and I keep coming back to this, and at some point there will be a podcast on this, the pervasiveness of our permission-based society, because it's like we're conditioned to need permission. And we don't need permission, but we do that as a way of I've done, you might say, oh, I've driven this many kilometers today, or work was this intense because of XYZ, and suddenly you need validation to sit down and rest rather than saying, right in this moment, I need to recharge. right? My battery has just run down. And so we still talk in this permission-based space. And I wonder, like for you, and you may be able to talk to this, you may not, because you've been, I think, fairly consistently creative as well when you've been working. Probably not to the extent that I have, but that's okay. Like I had more spaciousness. Is there an envy that you think exists when you work full time and you see your spouse starting to get some spaciousness? Like I'm sure at some level you celebrate it, but some level you go, nice bloody life you've got there. Hey, enjoy that, wifey. Go be creative. And like, does that sometimes filter in? Because obviously we're talking about farking the shoulds in this podcast. And part of the shoulds are that you should celebrate your spouse for their creativity. You should celebrate the fact that they've reached a milestone with the kids, not burning the house down, feeding themselves, like all that kind of stuff, right? So there's all these ideas of shoulds of celebrating that. And as we talk about, there seems to be a natural point in relationships where that obviously is not happening, but there's like a massive swing the opposite direction where there's a resentment that builds up. They're no longer communicating. And so it just becomes, I do this, well, I do this. And so this real intentional divide that happens where neither is willing to come to center point, let alone look at it from the other perspective.
In terms of, I guess there is the potential for there to be a jealousy there of going, well, hang on a minute, there's no kids, you're at home by yourself. What are you doing? But
all husbands know not to come in the door and say, what do you do all day?
Having been on the other side of that coin, I know you don't stop in that role as much as you might. And you might think you're luxuriating when you take half an hour or an hour to do something for yourself. Oh my goodness, how dare you?
I know.
And it's more like, how dare you not? And I guess there is probably a level of wanting to be there to luxuriate at the same time. You chose this person for a reason. If they've got an hour where they're going to do meditation or they're going to put a 5-minute song on or they're just going to just take 10 minutes to themselves, you sort of want to be there and you want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the rest of the years of work that went into it or the 3.5 hours worth of organising to get something up and going to get children entertained for 10 minutes. So yeah, the other thing you sort of came back to is I want to change just the language that you used before.
You can try, but
what suddenly came to me with this asking for permission or asking for validation, it all comes back to that now I've lost my words.
Okay, they'll come back.
That sense of God,
he's looking at me hopelessly going, please save me.
Oh, belonging and significance.
See, look at that. You had it in there. I believe in you.
Maybe I just need to hear that. But it's coming back to that belonging and significance. So whatever role you're playing within your relationship, that acknowledgement, as you sort of said, that the reason why I think that struck me is going, that's one that you need, is because it gives a sense of significance to what I'm doing. That I'm out there and I'm doing this. I'm not necessarily, don't always love what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I would rather be sitting at home or never sit down, but I'd rather be at home.
Yeah, you say that, but that's not true.
But I'd rather be interacting with you on a physical and a cellular level.
Fun me, not tired me where I'm swearing at everybody.
That can have its advantage too sometimes.
Spicy Jodi's come out.
Yeah, Spicy Jodi's here. Look at how great a dad I am, kids.
Right. Then we have the significance come in.
Yes, yes, but also that belonging, that acknowledgement is the belonging of your role and where you belong outside of that work relationship. And that in terms of a foot in each camp, there's a lot that you're exposed to when you're at work from external people that are peripheries, colleagues, workmates, sometimes friends, managers, people that make decisions and hand down stuff and you just have to do and you are just a number.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff there that's buffeting you
Yeah.
in that work environment that doesn't necessarily buffet you in the home environment.
Like what?
Oh, expectations of other people as to why aren't you doing this in your free time?
Yeah.
And what do you mean you're not doing that?
Mm.
That's, you're not living, breathing 100% work. You're living and breathing as little of the work as you can so that you can throw yourself into the other side of that relationship.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the fact that there's going to be expectations from people. People are going to want to take from your
Mm.
bucket,
Mm.
or your role is going to take from your
Mm.
bucket before you then get to where you wish to be spending your,
Mm.
well, it's going to take from your farks, where
Yes.
you wish to be spending your farks
Yeah.
on the other side of that coin.
Yeah. Mm. Mm. So if you had a magic wand and you could, no, we'll call it a magic paintbrush, and you could paint the life that you want right now, what would that look like?
Um, hmm. I think it would be more time here.
Mm.
It'd be more time being around where we live, around one another, around our family, without necessarily feeling that sometimes I'm a bit fatigued
Yeah.
or a bit needing to recharge my battery.
Yeah. Do you think the issue is you feel fatigued because you don't recharge your battery?
Possible.
Mm.
Possibly. And, you have times where you feel like today, for example, the day we're doing this podcast, it's been raining overnight. It's cold, it's windy, it's wet,
Yeah, it's a
it's
shit of a day.
miserable.
Yeah.
My energy levels are low anyway. I don't feel like
Mm.
being out there and bouncing around. And it's a sort of
Mm.
a change of season almost
Mm.
marked today.
Yeah.
And you sort of go, ooh, you
But it's
know,
very shouldy to continue that motivation when it isn't reflected in the environment. I mean, this weather is like a reminder to just become a little bit more insular, not completely. We're not talking hot water bottle and big doona and a movie in bed all day.
sounds pretty good.
It does sound pretty good,
Okay.
actually.
Thanks,
Okay,
folks.
folks, I've got to go. Um, but it definitely is about just maybe bringing that focus a bit more internally and making sure that you do something that nourishes you to recharge your batteries.
Hmm.
I mean, I tend to write it on my to-do list, but I don't do it. So now I've decided that given I live in a quantum world or whatever word you want to use it, but a world of, infinite possibilities with limitless energy, I'll just collapse time. And so the hour-long meditation that I'm going to do, I'm going to squish into 40 seconds and I'll feel I'm like a fast recharger. That's what that is, right? The phone still works. You put on a fast recharger, it's a fast recharge. It's back at 100%. Fantastic. Doing all the things it needs to do. You're looking at me weirdly.
No, I mean,
What's wrong with collapsing time?
I'm impressed because I have seen you do it. I've seen you compress time and make it work for you when I just thought things weren't possible. Um, in terms of that, taking that time, I guess, to recharge the battery and seeing you sort of put that focus directly on me.
Well, you are here and
It
there's no one else to focus on, dearest.
just you and me. It's part of that expectation that you then put on yourself to
Yeah.
get other things done, to
Mm,
achieve other things. So,
mm.
we live on a bit of property, so there's always something that needs to be done. And if it doesn't get done,
It doesn't get done,
it doesn't get
actually,
done.
it
And at
turns
some point
out.
in time, it has to be done.
Yeah.
And so, the buck stops where? It stops here as well. So you feel even on a day
According to you,
like
it
this,
does.
and that's probably part of my makeup,
Yeah.
part of my, yeah, let's not explore me too much, hey?
No, no, no. You're basically here under the microscope. Thank you, folks, for being part of this counselling session.
Hmm. But it's just interesting that sometimes when we feel that need to just do nothing, we either feel guilty about it
Yeah.
because feel that we're doing nothing,
Yeah.
even though we are recharging our battery and we're allowing ourselves to get back to that 100% charge so we can give 100% of ourselves.
Mm,
Um, Again, we feel that we don't have permission
that's right.
or that we're failing within our obligations rather than looking at it objectively and going, you know what? I'm just going to go and have a nice soak
Yep.
in a tub for an hour. I'm going to read a book. I'm going
Mm,
to watch a movie. I'm going to just do a few basic things to just make sure the house survives until the next day.
yeah. One of the most effective things I have done is I have decided to have a day off where I've gone, F it, I'm not doing any of it. And what I find is that once I've done that, essentially wiped the calendar and just granted myself the spaciousness, then I find I recharge fast again and I actually don't need the whole day. And suddenly I'm back up and being productive.
Hmm.
The other thing I was thinking about when you were talking about it, because one of our dear friends talks to her kids about the fact that she has a battery and one of her kids definitely discharges it faster than the other, right? And so this is her language around this high intensity kid. And I just love it because, in fact, he gets it too, right? He's like she's able to say to him, "You are discharging my battery too fast. So go a little bit further away from me so I can work on recharging, or just it doesn't happen so fast." And that analogy is actually really useful. And I was thinking about, I get that, right? That feeling of recharging, say, if you want to do some stillness or you want to go for a walk out in nature and do your recharge, however you want to plug in and fill up your cup. That is doing something. We know that. Intellectually, we know that, but somewhere in our belief system, we don't buy it, right? We call BS on it. And the thing that happened the other day was that I, for some reason, I don't know what's going on. Apparently, there are slow chargers now and fast chargers for phones, and I was using what appears to be a slow charger. So my phone started at 21%, and I'm like, shizen, I better plug it in, but I'm still doing some stuff. And literally, it was charging, and by the time I'd finished my tasks, it was at 19%. I'm like, it's charging and it's running
Going
out of battery,
backwards.
right? And it was charging the whole time. So my point is that it's all very well to have a belief system that I don't, if I stop and do nothing, say, which is obviously not nothing, there's no such thing as no thing. But if I do nothing and recharge my inner battery, then somehow that's doing nothing. But it's not true, because even whilst I was doing activity, whilst my phone was charging, it was still depleting the battery. And I thought that was such an eloquent analogy of the fact that if I had just left it and not asked anything more of my phone, it would have actually charged up far quicker,
Mm.
because I was putting an impedance on it. I was forcing it to work under duress. It's already trying to charge, and I'm like, no, I still need you to do some more things, right? So that analogy, if we can work on a way to internalize that, even if you need to give yourself permission, but the efficiency of that recharge, where when you don't try and do other things, right? Like, I'm thinking about the mums that sit down and they go, I'm just going to have a cup of tea, but I'm going to read Junior a book at the same time. They are not, recharging activities. The cup of tea might be, but sitting there in silence or doing a puzzle or staring out the window at the leaves moving on the tree, that's a recharge with your cup of tea. Reading to Junior is not a recharge, let's
That's your
face it,
battery
right?
dropping that extra from
Well,
21 down to
it's
19.
certainly utilizing some kind of energy, right? Because you're engaged. And I know there'll be some people that love that stuff, and good luck to you. But for the majority of us, it's like, no, that falls into, energy use because it's engaging with my child and so forth. So from that perspective, what I want to say, and I'm saying this to myself because I'm a Monty for saying this and not doing it, but it is far more efficient for us to do a fast recharge for ourselves that does not require anything else going on. Like, that in itself is doing something. And it's like the power nap. And you wake up and you go, "Oh, I feel like $1,000,000 now. Let's get on with the day. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to party all night," or whatever it is that your desire, for that day.
That's interesting. I like that. I really like that concept of the fast charge and the footing back to the footing both camps. If you're working and putting everything you've got into getting through that day,
Mm,
and you're doing that 5 days a week, and you're getting home, and there's 2 days where you're basically trying to recharge to go back to work Monday, and you're not gifting yourself that time to recharge.
mm,
Um, you know, maybe a Friday night quick recharge or a Saturday morning quick recharge
yeah.
to put your battery back at, push it right up to that 100% so that you get the best of yourself when you're home on that weekend or that couple of
Mm,
days with your family.
mm,
Um, it's probably
It's a
Yes.
good investment.
So what sort of fast charges can we do? I mean, you can do, I know you used to do mini
I
meditations.
love an itty bitty mini meditation. So, for the beautiful folks listening, I have this practice and I teach this as well. I mean, I'll tell you, and basically you're taught. So, it's not exactly rocket science, but literally, I have a bunch of different affirmations that go off in my phone at random times during the day. And it might be something like, I have more than enough patience, which is very helpful when you homeschool children because you need a lot.
More than enough. You need more.
Or you need to change your belief system. But so that's one, right? And so it will go off in my phone and I snooze it until I do it. And then literally I put the timer on for 40 seconds. I shut my eyes, I stand wherever I am, I stop anything that's going to boil over or burn the house down, and literally I give myself 40 seconds of concentrating on that affirmation to materialize it in my life. And it works, right? I teach my birthing clients this to prepare for an amazing birth. We teach our parenting clients this to help them just be more present with their children. It is all possible to actually change your daily experience based on that. So that's one of my fast recharges. I love that. One thing that I also love, and I know that you're doing this now, is I love a slotted in fast recharge that you otherwise wouldn't afford yourself. And one of the things that I know you've been doing is you get to work half an hour early and you will use that for a meditation or going for a walk. So you're out in nature.
Yeah.
And so that's almost invisible time because no one notices leaving work an extra 15 minutes. You beat some traffic and suddenly you're half an hour early. It's a genius way to slot in invisible time.
Yeah, or given with the traveling and that sort of stuff, and I don't like sitting in traffic.
Mm,
So getting up half an hour earlier or 15, and leaving 15 minutes earlier and getting there and
yeah.
having a half hour bit of time has been a good one for me.
Yeah.
Um,
The other thing that you did, and I'm curious because I know you shared this with our Quanta folks before, but I don't know if you're still doing it, but you used to get home and you'd park the car and then you'd walk down and shut the gate, particularly when you arrived home at night. And that was like your shutting the gate was your way of shutting that part of your day. So you walked in fresh.
yeah, I still do. I've still do use that one.
Yeah.
I probably don't have the presence of mind with it when I do it because I
Mm.
think with any of these things, it's having the changing the mindset or changing the
Yeah.
thought pattern to align it with what you wish to get out of it, like exactly what you're saying with your mini med. Yeah, and there's a couple other ones I do, like when I get in a car to drive, if I'm driving sort of more, well,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm driving, generally I'm driving at least an hour.
Mm.
I won't turn car radio on for the first
Oh, yeah.
half an hour,
Yeah.
and but I might put a meditation on in that time,
Yeah.
and generally don't until I get through the first little major city. I
Mm.
don't turn any other mainstream or any other radio or music on
Mm.
until that point. And if I'm coming home and I'm not exhausted, and I've
Mm.
got the windows down and the
Mm.
you know music blaring to keep me going for that last minute,
Yeah.
um, often I'll turn the radio off again on the
Mm.
same, turn any sound
Mm.
off or noise off and just
Yeah, just reduce the sensory input.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the radio on at all anymore. In fact, the
Mm.
kids introduce music into the environment, but I am so detoxed from having that corrosive noise and propaganda in my ears. Oh, it's just a beautiful thing to not have that anymore. I'm really grateful for it actually, because I think that we're totally addicted to busyness and entertainment. You know, this is
And
why
that
people scroll.
need that something needs to be
Yeah,
going on
yeah,
at all times.
yeah.
I wonder why we sometimes struggle to sleep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, quite apart from all the exposure to the electronic waves and all the fields that are out there. And though, I mean, they really do disrupt your hormones and your normal circadian rhythms and so forth. But I really do notice the fact that there is an opportunity to break those holds. And they're just addictions.
Mm.
We're more aware of the illicit drug addictions, say, but all of these things are a pervasiveness. If they stop you from recharging your own batteries, then that in itself
Yeah,
is
why do we need to stay in an adrenal state
absolutely
when
just
we
makes you sick.
the simple things of just switching off are going to
Yeah. What are your
Interesting.
closing thoughts, my darling?
We sort of moved away from a foot in each camp. I
Hmm.
think we sort of had a bit more of a look at the respective pressures on one another within a relationship. I think we touched a little bit on why some people feel a disconnect.
Hmm.
And I really think a lot of it comes back to that belonging and significance
Belonging and significance is
and
so
not
potent.
needing permission,
Hmm.
just doing what's right for you and for your partner. And your
Yeah,
family.
permission's a should. Fuck it.
Mm.
Be well, beautiful people. Until next time, when this luscious man is sitting opposite me, you stay very well and we'll talk very soon.
Bye,
Bye.
folks.
Hey, Quanta folks, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Birth is transformational. And it can be transformational in the right way and in the not so right way. So how do we arm ourselves to be really prepared for this incredible experience? Well, you wouldn't go out and run a marathon without any kind of training. You'd at least do occasional stretches, and the High Vibe Birth course, which is self-paced, available at the QuantiMama.com website, is available for you. You get to luxuriate in all of the ideas and transformational techniques and the beautiful information that can only have a positive effect on your birth. So get fit for your birth marathon and head to QuantiMama for the High Vibe Birth course. Beautiful Quanta folks. You know, at QuantiMama, we have a mandate that we feel so passionate about. We want and we are raising the community's vibration and frequency and consciousness through parenting and birth experiences. Such incredible, transformational experiences that will shape you as a person and are the very fabric of life. Do you want to find out how to high vibe your experience even more? Then QuantiMama is your place. Head there for the High Vibe Birth course, ultimate preparation for birthing. Head there if you want to re-engage your child in the love of learning for the Take the Leap course, which is a deschooling course for parents. There's beautiful mind movies, and obviously this podcast is there, and we are here to support you. So head there for all the juice.